Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak remain in office tonight after receiving partygate fines as they refuse to bow to media and political pressure to resign. Tory MPs reportedly refusing to boot the PM out of Number 10 while war continues to rage in Ukraine. A good point, I think. And Boris pressed on with the business of government this afternoon as he called US President Biden to renew focus on supporting Zelensky and Ukraine in their fight against Putin's terror. So, with the PM resolutely guiding the country through crises at home and abroad, is now really the time to force him out undemocratically? Well, we're going to debate this now with former Conservative Minister Edwina Currie and Reform UK leader Richard Tice. Edwina, removing Boris from office now would be an act of national self-harm, wouldn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And you're quite right. I mean, I'm not going to defend anything that went on in Downing Street. They seem to have had parties at the drop of a hat. And at the very least on his birthday, if they wanted to obey the rules, they could have put all the prezzies in the flat and then said, there you go, Prime Minister, everything's up in the flat. You're okay. We're off home. And they didn't do that. So I'm not going to defend that at all. But you're quite right, Dan. I mean, there is a war on in Europe with millions of refugees heading into other countries, thousands of them already arriving now in the UK. We have other issues. You mentioned cost of living and so on. It's actually worse in Europe. I don't know if you've noticed. The prices are actually rising faster in a number of other countries than they are here, but still it's affecting people's lives. We're catching up in the health service, for example, with hundreds of thousands of people being pulled in now to have surgery and treatment that had to be postponed for the last 2 years because of COVID. Everybody I know just about has either just had a procedure or is about to have a procedure. It's wonderful, but you know, these are very big issues, not to mention things like green energy security and stuff like that. So the Ukrainians would think we were crackers. They'd say, what, you've sacked him because of a 10-minute birthday party? Really? That would be insane. And
Richard Tice
continue to be one.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Edwina, actually. Richard Tice, don't you think a Conservative Party leadership contest right now would be disastrous? Because you'd have half the cabinet throwing their hat into the ring, not thinking about a war, not thinking about a cost of living crisis. We can't deal with this at the moment.
But, Dan, there's never a good time to change Prime Minister. But I think we just need to remind ourselves about history, don't we? I mean, John Major took over from Margaret Thatcher at the time of the First Iraq War. Winston Churchill took over from Chamberlain at the worst point in the Second World War. Lloyd George took over from Asquith in the First World War. So I'm afraid those parallels make absolutely no sense whatsoever. The reality is that the Prime Minister, he lied to Parliament, he misled people, he hasn't told the truth on multiple occasions, and I just think it's an absolute tragedy that our great, wonderful country is led by a governing party whose MPs seem to think that that's okay. You can lie, you can mislead, as long as you want, as long as we cling on to power. So principles are out the window, Dan. Integrity's out the window, Dan. Morals are out the window. Values are out the window. Is that really, Dan, the country we want to leave?
Edwina, let me put that to Edwina, because, Edwina, you served under Margaret Thatcher, and Richard suggests that your party, the Conservative Party that you love, could lose moral authority if you turn a blind eye to this.
I don't see it like that at all. I mean, I hear Richard speak in much the same terms that I heard David Lammy speak for Labour a little bit earlier today. And the words self-righteous and, dare I say, something like twit come into mind. You know, honestly, these are senior people in other political parties. The only way that could get rid of the Conservatives would be if we were infighting in exactly the way that you have described. And I don't think it's going to happen. Conservatives have, in many more ways than some of our other critics, the interests of the country at heart. And indeed, as Boris is being seen as one of the leading critics of Putin, one of the leading helpers of what's going on in Ukraine, I think we're going to see Boris and this government changing much of what's been happening in Europe. So I look forward to seeing them with more success. Yes,
Richard, I have to give Richard a chance to respond to that. Because, Richard, Edwina's just described you as a self-righteous twit.
Look, forget that, Dan. The reality,
did I do really
you've got a prime
that?
minister.
Oh, my goodness me. How could I possibly? Let me tell you something. If you're
We'll just let Richard respond.
If you talk about replacing leaders, Richard mentioned Lloyd George, and he mentioned Winston, and he mentioned John Major. Yeah. All of those also had a slightly distant relationship on occasion with the truth. Two of them, Winston and Lloyd George, replaced previous leaders in the middle of a war when that war was going badly.
You've made my
Boris
point
is leading us in a war that's going well.
Let Richard come in. Richard come in.
Edwina's just made my point for me. Exactly. You can change a leader in wartime. What we've seen is a prime minister who basically think that the rules that he set only apply to us, the little people. They don't apply to the elite. We've got a chancellor who sets the tax rules but only thinks that taxes apply to us, the little people. They don't apply to him, his wife, his family. This is an appalling way for our great nation to be run, where the elite Tories think that it's only the little people that pay taxes and abide by the rules and can't go to the funerals of their loved ones whilst they're having parties and booze up. Where's the accountability? Where's the moral authority, Dan? I think it's deeply shocking that this Conservative Party still thinks it's okay. It's all about power, and everything else has gone by the wayside.
Edwina, do you feel like the Chancellor Rishi Sunak has been badly damaged? Because he's received this fixed penalty notice today, but of course he's been caught up in all of this tax scandal over the past week.
Well, I'm just thinking when Richard was talking about elites and so on, there's only one of us on this programme tonight, Dan, with a posh accent, and that's Richard. I certainly am not that kind of, grand person or anything like that. As for Rishi, I think he's been rather unfortunate. I mean, there are lots of people who have non-dom status, and it's been around for a very long time. And I think it's been very useful to this country. I think it's brought a lot of investment into this country. Some of it now from people who don't want, we don't want as our friends, like the Russian oligarchs. But nonetheless, there are many other people who I think their presence really emphasizes how important this country is globally. And that's got to be a good thing. Whether it's a good idea to be a non-dom if your husband's the Chancellor of the Exchequer, that's a different matter. That suggests me just a whiff of political naivety, not a wrongdoing of any kind.
Come back, Richard.
Just look at the conflict of interest here. You've got a Chancellor who thinks it's okay to raise taxes for everybody else in the country except the non-doms. If he's short of a few quid, Dan, in the old coffers, why didn't he target the non-doms? They've got plenty of cash. Why didn't he target? Oh, I remember, because my wife's a non-dom. The conflict of interest here, in any business, that person, if they were a director of a company, would have either resigned or been fired. And you said earlier, Dan, in the intro, that it would be the wrong time to change the Chancellor. Completely the opposite, Dan. This Chancellor is a tax-raising Chancellor. He's not a Conservative. He's a con-socialist. We need to be cutting taxes hard to get growth. You need a Chancellor, someone like John Redwood, to come in, cut taxes hard, use the shale gas treasure under our feet.
He would do a great job.
The country needs.
He would do a great job. I mean, Edwina Currie, is there not an argument to say, actually, maybe post-pandemic, we just need a fresh broom? We need new ideas in number 10 and number 11. Is there no argument for that?
Did you actually read the energy security document? I've never seen such a magnificent collection of new ideas. There's a great deal of new ideas floating around, many of which will need the cooperation of both government and industry and scientists and brand new technology. It's absolutely brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I think
no fracking, though, which was annoying.
Say again?
No fracking, which was annoying.
That hasn't been ruled out. I'm actually very keen to see fracking. I've said, you want to frack in my back garden? Please feel free, as long as I can have free energy. The world has changed because of Ukraine. The war that's going on there is an existential war about freedom right through Europe. It's about a restatement of the Cold War, which I grew up with all my life. I really want to see Ukraine win and chase the Russians out of Ukraine and humiliate Putin. And actually, Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak are an extremely important part of that. And it comes to tax raising. Margaret Thatcher would have said, listen, if you borrow a lot of money, you've got to pay for it. And we did have to borrow a lot of money for the pandemic. We didn't have to.
We didn't have to. We chose to.
Hang on.
But I understand your point. Final word to you, Richard.
We need to grow our way out of this crisis, not tax our way out of this crisis. George Osborne, he taxed people. We had austerity Mark 1. Sunak is leading us into austerity Mark 2. Edwina, we all want to get rid of Putin. We all want Ukraine to win the war, of course. But the reality is, Edwina's shaking her head. She thinks you can tax your way out of a crisis. We've got to grow our way, grow the economy, and then actually the debt looks after itself.
Well, look, good-spirited debate. Thank you so much to both of you. That is the Reform UK leader, Richard Tice, and the former Conservative Minister, Big Boris cheerleader, Edwina Currie. Pleasure to speak to you both.